Well, I'm excited for this recording, this interview, because it's a very unique one and it's long overdue. I want to introduce to the audience Solomon Hewitt and Lamont McCravey. And gentlemen, you and I, each of us have gotten to know each other over an extended period of time. And I'm excited to have this conversation with you because it's going to be an important public service to help educate people on a couple of things. So we're here to talk about two different topics, both of which pertain to justice-involved men that have been involved in the criminal justice system. The first is dealing specific with the population of sex offenders and sex offender treatment. Then we're going to talk about, in general, the issue of reentry and what was or wasn't helpful for you all, and then thinking in terms of society and decision makers and policymakers, and even down to faith-based organizations and churches. What can we do to enhance and increase the likelihood that people do not fail and wind back up in prison? Because no one benefits. No one benefits, whether people have thought about it or not. It's a tragedy all the way around if a guy fails out and goes back to prison. So we're here for really the twofold purpose, and I will do a brief introduction of each of you, and then you both can add to that. Solomon, you and I have been working together, both of you, Solomon and Lamont. How we all know one another is you help co-facilitate my groups. And so I thought, instead of me just coming on and talking to the audience about what happens in there, I thought there's no better person or persons to talk to that than the guys that help co-facilitate. It's one thing for me to have a degree, but you all have lived experience as far as behind those walls. And there's a number of guys in our groups that spent time in prison. People may or may not be aware that you can have guys in a group, in a sex offender treatment group, that really actually haven't done any time. It means either they did some plea deals or somehow they were fortunate enough to be diverted away from prison, or they're just given the requirement for treatment. So let me have each of you introduce yourselves. Solomon, why don't you start? You and I have been working now together for a couple of years. And Lamont, I don't know, Lamont, how long has it been?
It's getting ready to go on probably about 9 months. Get ready to go on about a year. We heading toward a year.
There you go. So time flies. So
yes, sir.
Each of you would help me with. Actually, Lamont, you're sort of a glutton for punishment in a way, meaning you're a trooper because in your schedule, you have volunteered for and you try to make two groups. And so the weekend is when you're able to make it more because you're a full-time, you've just been promoted in your company. So
yeah,
you're busy, and you've got kids also that you're trying to take care of. So you've got a full life, and Solomon, same for you. Solomon, let's give a little bit of your background. You and I have been working for a couple of years, and Lamont, you and I, and you and us, because in our Tuesday night group, it's really the three of us. And Lamont, when you can make it, but it's the three of us that are working with guys who have found themselves on the receiving end of mandated treatment for sex offenses. So Solomon, why don't you do a brief introduction of yourself, and then what we'll do, we'll pass that over to Lamont, and then I'll ask you all some questions about treatment. What's it been like? What has your experience been like co-facilitating?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Uhler. I've been out of prison now since 2020. I started working with Mr. Uhler in 2021, and he's been an enormous amount of help. And program-wise, spectacular. Currently, I work at a place called Vote. I work through an agency called Vote at Shandier Electric. We manufacture all different sorts of electrical components. Had the opportunity to finish school since getting out of prison at age 57. Age 57, I was released. After serving roughly about 40 years, actually I was a juvenile when I was arrested. That's something a lot of people need to start considering. The effects of programs and different things, how they affect people that were incarcerated when they were a juvenile at first, and then they went on to the adult system. But I think it should be a different way of dealing with people that were juveniles when they were arrested opposed to adults. And the program itself, programs are something that everybody needs. I feel like, me personally, had it not been for the program, when I go through peaks and valleys, highs and lows out in society, the program will keep me grounded and keep me going. A lot of people feel like they don't need programs, but I tell you, man, being involved with the program, a treatment program after prison, it keeps you grounded. Because every week, man, you reminded where you came from, how hard you had to work to get out. And believe me, you have to work even harder to stay out. Actually, I'm single, I have no kids, in school at the University of Maryland online, studying to get my bachelor's degree. Looking to graduate next year, that will offset because I transferred schools. And most importantly, man, I go to school, and I'm excited about that. And being involved with this program is what I really want to do, because hopefully that can translate or transcend to becoming a youth counselor, work with at-risk youth. That's what I plan on doing. And Mr. Uhler been a lot of help all along the way. Thank you on that. Pass it on to Lamont.
Lamont.
Okay, well, I'm a guy that was a real bad guy growing up young. I was involved in the streets. I did drugs. I committed horrendous crimes, and I was sentenced to 25 years mandatory, which I ended up doing 16 years and 5 months day for day. Along my journey of being incarcerated, I started to delve into all kind of different studies and growing, and I guess my humanity developed in a place that a lot of people would call inhumane. And it caused me when I got out to start to seek and want to be of service to people. And as I have been out now for over, oh gosh, I think getting ready to be about 20 years now, 20 years free. And I have been a productive member of society. Even in the beginning part, even John even said recently, got promoted in my company that I've been working there for going on 12 years now. I have two boys. My oldest is 13. My youngest is 7. I know I had a late start because I had a late start. You know, saying having children so young. But I mean, I attend church. Even today, just left out of Bible study and went to work, been to Bible study, and now here on this podcast right here. What I have gained since joining John's team is a twofold symbiotic relationship in which he helps me stay grounded and allows me to be able to give back at the same time. And I learned so much from his system and his program, in which he talks about like staying on the path. He uses a lot of different charts and graphs. It's a faith-based type of therapy that just sits so right with my heart and my spirit. And I'm pretty sure he has some tough questions, or he can answer some questions that I can go more in depth. That's just my introduction, and I thank John for this opportunity, and I thank for sharing this platform with Solomon also.
Well, I appreciate the two of you. As I tell the guys in group and now in the audience, those that are viewing, that you guys don't get paid, right? We're all kind of volunteering, although I guess I get paid. It's my groups, but at the same time, you guys are volunteering. You're doing it because you're giving back and you want to. And to me, that's amazing. It's a wonderful thing. Well, Solomon, and we'll kind of ask the same question to each of you, so we'll give each of you a chance to respond to these questions. Solomon, if the average person out there, since the average person doesn't know what goes on in sex offender treatment, most people don't even think about that, but there is such a thing called sex offender treatment for guys that have been arrested and convicted, and some have done time. We have a wide variety of guys. As a matter of fact, in each of the groups, they kind of run the spectrum as far as Some have not done any time. Some did time. So that depends upon the nature of their offense and what kind of attorney they had and what kind of plea deals sometimes. So if somebody is wondering, because this is probably the case, what are your thoughts and how do you respond to, okay, what the sex offender treatment stuff, does it even work? Is it beneficial or is it just a waste of time? And should we just have guys do time and not get out and do this treatment stuff? Does treatment even work?
That's a very good question. Yes, it does work. First of all, a person has to come to terms with whether or not they feel as though they did something wrong. A lot of guys still cling to a habeas corpus or on appeal or ineffective assistance from the counsel, from the lawyer. They try to use technicalities to try to wiggle their way out of doing the time. First of all, real treatment starts in your heart and in your mind when you realize that, hey, I did something wrong, whether I was on alcohol, whether I was on drugs, all that's secondary. That's something that enhanced your activity because you lost control of yourself. You wasn't able to respond in a situation the right way. You had a distorted, perception of reality because you were under drugs. After the fact, that doesn't make any difference. You still got to be accountable for your actions. When a person becomes accountable for their own actions, okay, well, I did wrong. I'm not going to blame society. I'm not going to blame the judge, anybody. Then you can begin to rebirth yourself. The rehealing process takes place. Then the programs like you offer, hey, for me, it's totally beneficial because I came to terms with the fact that I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, doing the wrong thing, someplace where I shouldn't have been. Something went wrong, so I accept the responsibility for my actions. But the treatment program, it works for me because I'm able to put myself in a position where I can accept your diagnosis. When you talk about the left brain, the right brain, a person being a psychopath, a person committing a crime for the first time, getting involved with stuff they're getting involved with. So when you realize that you did wrong, then you can really be receptive and receive the treatment. The program helped me because it gives me an opportunity to be aware of my actions. Some things you shouldn't do. Sometimes you can't socialize with certain people because association brings on assimilation. You might begin to be the wrong place and after a while become overwhelmed and not realize you're being lured into something. So anybody that's been in prison for almost any crime, you always got to be mindful of your surroundings to make sure that you where you should be and opposed where you shouldn't be. Now, in prison, sex offender treatment is different. The majority of people that have bad sex offender problems in prison. The majority of them, they aren't even in prison for a sex crime. That end up developing after prison because they can't control their nature, their sexual desires and drives. So a lot of people that get involved with crime in society and have a sex offender problem, most of them that doesn't continue on after incarceration. So my point is, if you was to go and get access to my prison file, my medical file is very small, and my infraction file is very big, meaning that I didn't stay sick that much. I don't have a mental problem, and I don't have a sex problem in prison as far as raping people and assaulting people. I didn't have those problems. I only had an attitude adjustment problem, which really became my problem after I understood what my problem was. Then I didn't act out, and I didn't do things that I shouldn't be doing. So when we get opportunity to confront the fact that we did wrong and accept treatment, then we can realize what led to, okay, well, I might not be a sex offender. What led me to lose control of myself in the first place? When you can figure out your highs and lows, hot button issues, things that cause you to go from 1 to 10, when you can figure out what those issues are, like we talk about in class, then treatment can really work. For me, treatment's working because I don't think that I don't need treatment. I don't think that I don't need treatment programs. Some people feel as though they don't need them, so for them it's not going to work. In prison or out of prison. You got to feel as though you need it and it's something that you really want to do in your heart. Then it can really work. So for me, it's working. And it is needed. But the person that's willing to apply the tools that we learn in the class, in the program, it'll work. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Lamont.
Oh man, I was so listening to Solomon Word. Could you reiterate the question? I was just listening to, I'm always Just kind of captivated by it. So could you, sorry about that. Could you
Sure.
reiterate the question?
Right. If someone is thinking, okay, the sex offender treatment, right? So two things probably with that is the concept of sex offenders, right? And therefore, do they deserve treatment? That's part of it. But okay, the sex offender treatment. So a guy gets out of prison or is diverted into treatment. But either way, so sex offender treatment. What goes on and does it help? And also, what goes on in there? Or now, also from your perspective, since you and you joined Solomon and I, and you've been with us for a year, so this will be good as well. So here's the third component to the question. So, does it help? What goes on in there, and what have your thoughts been? So you kind of, as an outsider, you came in and you weren't quite sure what is this treatment stuff. So, what does it help? What goes on in there?
Yes, for me, as a person, as I stated in my introduction, as a person who's grown to be empathetic and sympathetic to people, and as a person who was incarcerated for so long and got judged a certain way and thought it was probably improbable for me to change and grow to be a better person. I feel like it's the best thing to do to be able to afford somebody that opportunity. Some, as Solomon says, some people may have acted out and did things of a sexual nature, but that may not have been the real issue or the real problem. So to get to learn and to get to the bottom of those things, like by attending group where you introduce certain concepts, some tied into biblical and religious texts and concepts, and a lot of it's dealing with psychology. You know, where we talk about reprobate mind, which is mentioned even in the Bible, which still is even in society, we don't know what a reprobate mind could be. You know, not even just from a religious state of point of view. How you talk about Paget's theory of cognitive development and things like that to try to get people to see, at least in some of the groups we do, we're dealing with uh, the develop their brain to get to thinking. I think group is needed for everybody that may have re-entering society or have done things and may not know why they have done things. And I think sexual crimes is one of the major ones too, because in that sense, you not only may do things to injure yourself, that you infect and affect somebody else's life in whatever crime that you do. So I think it's best to get a grip and a hold on it. And I think that everyone, and especially sex offenders too, deserve opportunity to receive counseling. And as an observer for almost a year, I have seen the guys I have dealt with. I have seen the growth and the transition through your program and dealing with them. And I know therapy can work and group can work, you know, because I think that's what it is. And it also builds a bond of camaraderie, and also that people do care and like guys with similar circumstances can share and be open and get some honest critique from you, because you and from Solomon and also myself. I know sometimes we give these guys some real straight talk, you know what I mean, that they may well deserve that they wouldn't get in the other group or in any other setting that might help them spark something to be able to change or see something in a whole different light. So yes, I think sex offenders have just as much right as any other people to a group setting to maybe help possibly change and grow and in another way and see the error of their ways or grow to never repeat such a crime. I think your group with the faith-based initiative, in a sense, is a great group to be in. And my personal observation of the thing is that I am sitting watching different miracles happen in these groups. I have seen guys who have issues and other guys connect guys with guys to make things happen. And you know, and I just seen as these guys and how you open the group with a proverb, and it, even if guys are not really religious, or anything like that, but the more they're involved in the group, the more and more they have to go and search up their verses. I think it may draw them closer to the Lord. And that is the aim, to hopefully draw them close to the Lord, that they can actually start to have remorse or regret for some of the things they did, and maybe have some compassion and grow spiritually. So I have seen some miraculous things while I've been watching this group, been a part of this group. So I see that God is moving through the group, and I have seen some changes in some individuals from when I first started to how they used to converse with each other or not talk, to now being more open and honest and things like that. So I am actually seeing group work in real time.
Can I add this?
Yeah.
About the proverb? The thing I find most interesting about the proverb is that it calls us to think. You know, we can always find a Bible that have footnotes, and the Bible, the footnote will give you another interpretation. But everybody think different about sometimes the same stuff in dealing with the point A to point B and how angles interact. Everybody think different, even about the same sentence. So what I like about the Proverbs, when we read the Proverbs, everybody have an opportunity to elaborate on each other's proverb. And that brings us together because we see all of us are actually thinking, because we know we got to think to stay on that path. And it's a rough life out here, man, being on this path called life, man. And something else I wanted to mention real fast was that when we go in the group, it gives us the opportunity to understand ourselves, dealing with our history, like the Mark pointed out about our history, upbringing, different things cause people to function different, because it can be environmental structure coming from a certain environment, and that can cause a guy to go off track and get into trouble. But the group gives us the opportunity to understand ourselves and our past, so a person will always stay in that judgmental state, always feeling, man, I'm being judged, everybody's against me. No, everybody's not against you. That's a stereotype that some of us coming out of prison put on ourselves. So I try to get guys to get that stereotype off of us and move forward and become a part of society, man, because we got to become productive. We got to work out here, and we got to pay taxes, and we got to move on. So it's kind of hard moving on if we're going to put that stereotype on ourselves. Feel like, man, people are always judging us, man, because we was in prison. We represent, a percentage of people coming out of prison. For being out of here mean that, hey, if we stay out here, we can keep the doors open for somebody else behind us to be released for sort of like the same crime. And in terms of the sex offender crime, if that's the only crime a person got, that's all you can look at. But if a person have multiple crimes, like you had 4 or 5 armed robberies, a shooting charge, or a attempt murder charge, or a murder charge, and a sexual assault or sex offender charge, Mr. Uhler, how do you deal with that kind of person? Because what I'm getting at is, when you get out of prison, you have to go on the sex offender register. Also, you have guys that might have 4 or 5 murder charges, might live right next door to you. They can almost go anywhere and do almost anything, but there are a lot of boundaries and stipulations put on a guy that have that type of offense, a charge of sexual nature. And for some people, that might just be one charge out of 8 or 9 other charges. But that one charge stands. I think that's some society don't really look at. How you can put a person to have just one charge, especially when some guy that was juveniles when they were locked up, 17, then hell over till you turn 18, you go in the adult system. But yet and still you were a juvenile. That may have been the only charge you had, but you may have had 8 or 9 other charges to go along with that, but they wasn't of sexual nature. You have a guy have 2 or 3 murder charges to get out of prison. He don't go on no register, no nothing. He just out of society running around. I mean, that's some society, politicians need to take a look at. Why is that crime looked upon like that? And why are people like that looked upon in that light like that? That's something that needs discussion.
And that's a very good point, Solomon. I know with the site that I run, SurvivorSupport.net, and what I talk about a lot, right? It's talking about the dangers of predators and the impact on survivors. So it's good that you brought that up, because people need to understand there's a wide variety of sex offenses. And there's about 8 categories of guys, in my estimation. And what people need to understand is you can have somebody with the label of sex offender, but it may not be what we immediately think of. It could be, because most of us think in terms of rapists or pedophiles. but it could be a guy that when he was age 18, he didn't figure out that he turned 18, or it could be age 19. He should have been on to college age girls, yet he was still friends with high schoolers. And before you know it, right now, a parent called the cops, and now he's labeled with that. So society does have a schizophrenic problem, which is not benefiting some of the guys that end up on the registry, because now they have that label. They go to get a job, and as you say, he could have committed homicide or attempted homicide or something, and by the time they're out, they don't have to have that label, which can inhibit or prevent a lot of things, including employment. So that's a real society does need to know that. So lawmakers, should there be the sex offender registry? I think there's probably a balance for more heinous individuals. There probably needs to be something so that the public can be aware. But then another piece is, if we're going to let guys out, it doesn't do anybody any good to have to live under a bridge. So we all have to recognize that. So this is where, as a matter of fact, in a little bit, we'll talk about reentry and trying to ensure success. Lamont, any thoughts from what Lamont said?
You mean what Solomon said?
What did I just?
No.
Oh,
You said me. Yeah, I know, man. I know.
Yeah, for people that don't know, we're taping this a little later at night, so my apologies. Okay, Lamont, any thoughts on? Well, it could be if you want to talk about within yourself. No, but yeah, any thoughts about what Solomon said?
Oh no, I mean I totally agree with him. I most definitely understand everything that he's saying. So I mean I have no add on for that. No, he said it perfect.
Well, let me ask you a question, then we'll let Solomon respond as well.
Okay.
With the time going, kind of inching up to a year that you've been in, and you've been working with me in two of the groups. Solomon used to do, once upon a time, he was doing a couple, but his schedule is such that he's just doing the one. What have you found, if someone were to ask, do you ever see any change in these guys? And as a matter of fact, how about this? Have you seen any change? And if so, what changes do you feel these guys go through? And what is the feel of the group? Because there probably are, and I'll actually throw this out as well, then I'll repeat the question. There's a couple different treatment philosophies as far as how group is done. A lot of sex offender treatment groups are conducted very much like they are in prison, which is very much hard-nosed, very almost, institutional like, and it's already not 3 strikes you're out, 1 more strike you're out. So that's one approach, very hard-nosed, grind their nose in it, make them talk about their offense every week, make them repeat their offense, make them talk about their entire sex offender history or sexual history. So almost kind of a humiliation-based approach, kind of really tear them down, versus an approach that is kind of looking to help a guy not necessarily be steeped in shame all the time, while wanting them to know and awaken to, as you said, their guilt. So a couple different questions in there. What approach do you think, from what you've seen, is effective, or how the group operates? And then is there change, and what kind of stages of change have you seen with guys?
Well, before being a part of co-facilitating a group with you, I heard of different groups in sex offender treatments. And as you say, to me, I think it's a humiliating, shaming type of program that they do. I think they believe they can get change out of a person by constantly humiliating and shaming them and guilt tripping them into change, which I don't think that probably is as productive as what I've seen in your group, where it's a more of a introspective experience where you allow people to share if they want to with certain degrees, but at the same time you allow uh, free thought and free expression. But at the same time, you also, when you think a guy is BSing or not being as open and honest or trying like that, you will dig a little deep, put your paws on them, and you have also allowed me to do the same at times with some of the guys. And but one of the things I've seen guys, like I said, that seemed like they wasn't taking things serious, that now they do take it serious. I've seen guys who didn't understand that maybe they were lucky in their circumstances compared to what their sentences was, and they were taking certain things for granted when certain things came their way, and when they realized this is not going anywhere, you have to at certain times of the year you have to go group up together, you know, and not be able to even be out in society at certain holidays. And I've seen guys come to that realization in that group. I've seen guys grow spiritually, because I remember I've seen guys that probably couldn't quote or knew anybody in the Bible that now know a couple of names and can quote Bible verses and things like that. So I've seen that spiritual growth in some of the guys. But I would like to talk about that. I think, at least from like I said, I help facilitate one group on Saturday where I kind of lead. Then I kind of co-follow Solomon sometimes when I do have the time on group. I know he comes from a anger management based type of structure for his group on Tuesday nights. Like on me on Saturdays, mine is a more open forum, introspective, interactive type of the way that we do it, where it's not basically based upon a certain curriculum to do. But either way, on both of them, I have now been a part to see on both of them, both styles, because you know, you are the main facilitator, where you draw all of it in and tie it all in with with uh with your charts and your program that you have devised that helps ties both groups in. So basically, to answer your question is that your questions that I have seen changes in my limited amount of time of being around. Like I said, I've seen some spiritual growth. I've seen some guys who were introverted. Now they are open and speak more and express more about their situations and their problems and their issues and their crimes. I've seen guys graduate and come back and speak to help encourage other guys. I've seen that. So don't know all the statistics yet, but I'm not hearing anything bad about the guys who have graduated from your program. I'm thinking they're going on to lead productive lives in society now. So yes, these are the things I have witnessed in a short period of time. So I think the group is very effective, seeing a lot of growth and change in guys, and also that your curriculum and your program is a great program where it's not based upon humiliation and shaming, compared to, which just my personal opinion, I don't believe that is an effective way of getting somebody to change. You know, being more personable, understanding, empathetic, and allowing somebody to grow and express themselves, and also give them other ways to see their mistakes, new ways of thinking, trying to introduce new ways of thinking and doing things. I think that is the best thing, and I see that with your group.
Well, thank you. Solomon.
Yes, sir.
I think the humiliation factor, feeling bad, guilt, and shame when most people first start the group, because I don't think they had arrived at that point where I arrived at before I started the group, coming face to face with my own guilt and the fact that I broke the law, I did wrong, and I made amends in my heart and with God. So therefore, I don't have to feel ashamed to hold my head down and feel bad. I feel like a lot of guys, when they first start the group, they have that on, that humiliation, that guilt, they feel bad. They don't know that, hey man, this is a treatment group. This is by court mandated. We got a licensed trained professional leading us in this group. He knows exactly what he's doing. So therefore, you don't have to hold your head down. He's going to help you stand up straight. So when most guys come in, they be, like Lamont said, they might be a little sluggish. They might be a little slow. They might not participate in stuff too much. Because of their guilt factor of their conviction, they feel bad. They feel bad. Hey, man, all of us in here, we in the same boat. So why should you come in feeling bad when other people in the same boat, but they've been able to try to get themselves together and stand up straight? So a lot of guys come in with that humiliation from that original conviction. They feel bad because traditional programs beat them down, make them feel bad. You know, when I was in prison, we would just they would show a video, and all videos would depict the person that committed the crime of the real bad, low down, despicable person. You know, by the time some people take those programs in prison, I think I had been locked up 15 years before I even got to take a program. Now think now. A guy that's convicted, that was just one of my charges, because I got all other kind of charges. Just one charge that I had. Mind you now, society need to know, if you really are into that type of activity, doing that, you ain't gonna stay locked up no 10, 12, 15 years without doing the same thing. Because one thing about a predator gonna try to find a victim no matter where he's at. If that's what he's into, preying on people. If you into taking advantage of people, you're gonna find one in society, as well as while you're incarcerated behind those walls. So I think some guys come in feeling humiliated and feeling that shame. But once they realize, man, we in the man trying to help each one. Everybody trying to use the education, their experience to help everybody. When guys get to that point, and it don't take all of them that long to realize, hey man, ain't nobody trying to make you feel bad about the fact that you were in prison. We trying to help you come up out of that. Remove yourself from the prison way of thinking now, because a lot of people get out of prison and they still have that stigma on them. So therefore, they end up putting themselves in the prison out here in society, because they feel for people. They don't think you're trying to help them. They think you're trying to hurt them in the worst way. The group is a real, very good group, and I've seen a lot of guys progress. Once they get past that initial stage right there, then I've seen a lot of them progress, man. With both the work that we do in the group, the treatment program, the treatment work that we do with anger management and with the sex offender part of it, when you combine them two together, because a lot of people just angry and frustrated, and that's what the anger and frustration what leads to a lot of crimes being committed anyway, escalating. And when they can get past that humiliation, and own degradation and shame, and move forward and accept the fact that, hey man, God will accept you, come as you are. When they can get to that point and knock on that door, then the program can really work for them as an individual. But overall, the program is very effective and it is needed. Yes, sir.
Someone, let me ask a follow-up question, then we'll go a little bit longer, because now we're going to, as soon as I ask this question, then we'll transition to talk about reentry. If someone sort of camped on what you said, and where what they heard was, okay, so this treatment stuff for sex offender treatment is all about helping them feel better about themselves. What about the victim? What, if anything, in group do we ever focus on helping them accept, feel the guilt and responsibility? Is that a part of what group is about?
When we talk about grief and loss, we talk about grief and loss, and when you get locked up for a crime, you might be locked up, there might be a victim, but everybody becomes a victim. Your own family becomes a victim, because you're far removed from being a good example and role model for your family, because you could correct yourself in society if you never became incarcerated. But once you become incarcerated, your family become a victim because they don't have you present, and the person that you committed the crime against, they become a victim. And I think the scars from a crime, a victim, those crimes last far longer than you might stay locked up. Some people, you have to stay locked up a long, long time, but some people, scars from a crime to be forgiven or removed and repaired. So I think a lot of times we talk about victims and the impact of what our offense can do, and you can think about other people. And I think when you realize the fact that you broke the law, victims' impact, that's something that a lot of people need to really start focusing on. Because I was about to get involved with the program, because everything in prison takes so long to get involved with. You sign your name up for it. It's called Victim Impact. That's where you go before a group of people. It might not be your victim, but you go in front of a group of victims, and you talk about you apologize for the crime, what led up to the crime, what led up to you getting involved in certain criminal activity. And a lot of people need to understand that a lot of people don't just be out there looking for a victim. Sometimes things just happen, or it could be other types of negating circumstances that make a lead to that type of crime. But a victim is someone that is a victim of a crime, and the crime can extend far beyond that. And it just like some of the guys when they come into the program, they feel guilt and shame, they hold their head down. Sometimes, man, victims they become introverts too. They become locked into a shell, and they don't be as outgoing, and it causes their lives not to flourish too. And that's something people can think about, how to reach a victim so that the triggers, certain things might not remind them of that crime in a bad way, because you don't want them to stagnate their life because of something that happened.
Yeah. Lamont, any thoughts about that? Does the group rest?
Yeah. Well, I know Lisa and I know on Saturday group, we have had moments in like through grief and loss, but also at times when like certain guys have talked about the woe is me, like he's like, I guess what we were talking about earlier, kind of like what Solomon said, it would seem like we've been talking and everything, like we only just trying to make these guys and the guys in the group feel better about themselves and not worry about the victim. No, I will say in your program, we have had moments and plenty of times where the whole group or individually where we had to remind guys about or speak into or have them speak about their victims and what impact they think their actions did and how it affected their victims' lives. Yes, because I know as society, that's one of the main things they gonna always wonder, and they always gonna be concerned about is the victim and how the person that was affected by a crime is doing or things like that. And so yes, we in this group we do concentrate and think about and try to encourage and never forget the victims. The victims are never forgotten because I mean they cannot be. I mean the crime and the victim are intertwined forever. You know what I mean? So you can never forget the victim. And at the same time, but that's why even with the religious faith-based curriculum, where of course you ask for forgiveness from God first and foremost. Ask, and I know a lot of the guys cannot actually physically communicate with their victims, but and they pray and think about and try to really concentrate on what they did and what that would look like if the shoe was on the other foot type thing right there. The impact that they had on somebody's life that may impact their children's life or somebody else's life. I mean, it's like a ripple effect. You know what I mean? That some of these crimes they can do, some people would never heal from. You know what I mean? And they might in turn infect somebody else. But we make sure in the group that we focus on that too, that to never forget the victims and but at the same time help you grow so you would not victimize anyone else.
Solomon, any last thoughts on that? And then we'll shift to the topic of reentry.
I mean, that could be something that could be done one day. Each one of us, we can't have contact with our own victim, but we could talk to a group of victims. You just can't have contact with your own victim, but it could be just some victim that doesn't have any connection to any of us. And they could just talk, and they could just talk about what their experience was, and then individuals could probably respond to it, because like beginning to understand the brain of why a person commit a crime, which is what helps us not recommit again. We try to avoid certain triggers, but victims don't be thinking about, well, your brain was such and such, you did such. They don't be thinking about the environmental control, the structure, how you was brought up, drug use, alcohol use. Some guys probably got beat up when they was little. They may have been abused themselves, so they end up doing all sorts of stuff. Victims don't be thinking about that. So I think that's an aspect of the whole scenario that victims need to try to listen to some of the people that really went down that type of path like that. Then they can try to understand they won't be so hard probably on some people that committed certain crimes like that. Not when it's only one offense. Now, if you got multiple charges and multiple offenses, then that's something different. If you're in and out of prison with certain crimes like that, then that's something entirely different. But I'm talking about some guy that got one offense, that got derailed one time because of a set of circumstances that they couldn't control. Victims might be a little more inclined to listen to it a little bit, but victims, man, need a special type of care. They got to go through a healing process.
And in the group, we talk about the wide range of offenses and mindsets all the way to psychopathy. So, right, with a psychopath, a whole different ballgame there. So, well, gentlemen, thank you for that, focusing on what takes place in group. Is it effective? And